G'day guys, and welcome again to another YouTube lesson. You're either being forced to watch these or you're thoroughly enjoying them. Probably the former. Either way, watch it. Okay, we're taking a look at operations once again, and we're looking in particular at the processes. We've spent one lesson on processes, I'm pretty sure. This is our second on there. We looked at inputs last lesson. Today we're taking a look at the influence of the 4 V's. 4 V's, you know. And those 4 V's include the volume, the variety, the variation in demand, and visibility, which is the customer contact. Now, the transformation process, which is what it's asking you to know about, and then also talk about these 4 V's. The transformation process is about transforming goods from inputs to outputs using both transformed resources, which are materials, and transforming resources, which is labor and or capital. The key to the transformation process is this notion of value adding or value add. This means that the final product that's finally sold is greater than the sum of all inputs. At each stage of the transformation process, value needs to be added in order for the business selling the product to be able to stay in business and to stay viable. We'll get to these 4 V's in a second, but you need to understand that transformation process, which is turning those inputs into outputs. I'll give you an example of this in terms of the value add. A computer has many transform resources, those raw materials and information. They have things like microchips. Let's say they cost $400, a microchip. It needs to be transformed into an output via a transforming resource. Workers and machinery. Let's say this costs $300. Therefore, the total cost of making this computer is the $400 for the components, $300 for the workers and machinery. The total cost therefore would be $700. Now, let's say that business puts all this stuff together, manipulates it using transforming resources too, as we said, and they sell the product for $1,000. They've added an additional $300 in value by providing that service, by manufacturing and selling that product. And that's what the transformation process is about, and this is what the value chain is and what value adding is about. Again, if any of this is a bit difficult, make sure to read your further reading in your textbooks, but also make sure to ask questions on Slack and come and see me to explain further. Now, the 4 V's: volume, variety, which is like customization, but say variety, variation in demand, and visibility, which is customer contact, but say visibility. Now, these 4 things, 4 dimensions, are referred to, not surprisingly, as the 4 V's, because they all start with V and there's 4 of them. No crap. Depending on which of the 4 V's is considered the most important to a particular business, this will affect the type of production method used. Now, we've not mentioned production method before. There are 3 production methods that we discuss in Year 12. And depending on whether there's like 3 aspects. You need to have your 4 V's, you need to have your production method you're using, and you also need to know whether it's a manufactured item or whether it's a service that's being provided. And goods which are manufactured or services that are provided, both of these will tend to use different production methods, and because of that, will have different types of 4 V's. I'll go through and explain that to you in a little bit. But first, the production methods. There's job production, batch production, and flow production. All right, job production. These suit those products and services that require much more than the standard product. All right, so it's got to be tinkered with, changed, very customized. E.g., an electrician fixing an individual job needs a high level of differentiation. I had a plumber recently come to my place, $400, probably cheap compared to what others would have charged, but how they dealt with fixing my plumbing issues, double entendre there, my bathroom problems and stuff like that, compared to old mate down the road would have been very different. He was a he in that instance, but could well have been a woman. But what he did was use the job production method in his business. Now, on the flip side, you have flow production method. It involves a continuous flow of inputs and outputs through the operations process and is often associated with assembly lines. So I want you to think for job production, carpenter, plumber, hairdresser, individual or very much individual jobs being done. Each job's individually done, very customized. Flow production, mass scale, assembly lines, all the same things. Lots of technology generally used, lots of robotics and capital equipment used. In between, it's called batch production. It's similar to jobbing or job production, except products are made in groups or batches. A good example of this is a bakery. They make a number of slightly different breads using the same process and produce batches of 50 to 100. So it's not done on mass scale all the time, but it does produce not just one bread roll, one other type of bread roll, one other cake or something. You make them in batches, 50 to 200. Slightly more still batch, slightly less still batch, slightly more still batch production too. It's not done on huge mass scale, but it's not an individual job one at a time either. Now have those three in your mind and make all these connections and these links. It's not just definitions. Now the first of the 4 V's is volume. Volume is the actual number of products or services made by the operation. So crap load of stuff made, high volume. Not much made, not high, low volume. A business using mass production will produce high volume with a high degree of process repetition. Now, what type of production methods would high volume be? If you said job production, drop business studies, it's not for you. If you said flow production, assembly lines, high volume, high output, that's it. Whereas a service-based industry like a carpenter, like an electrician, hairdresser, and so on, would have low volume because they're not making huge amounts at once. What type of production method would they use? And job production would be most appropriate there. Now, what we're seeing with volume here and also those production methods is this. High volume manufactured items, low volume service-based items, high volume flow production, low volume service because it's not much done at once, and it is job production, maybe batch production. Moving on to the second of the 4 V's is variety. It's customization, but you can't call it the 3 V's in customization. So variety refers to the number of different models and variations of the product or services. If the business has customers with different needs, goods and services will have to be modified, customized, and a wider variety of models and options will need to be provided. So again, that V, think about what production method needs to be used, and think about, so the variety, what production method needs to be used, and also, is it manufactured or is it a service? Again, service-based industry, like before, it would be job production and high variety, high levels of customization. Even as a teacher, maybe it's batch production, job production, but generally I cater how I teach a lesson based on the level of ability in the class, based on the individual kid that I'm answering a question to, and I use a lot of variety. I customize how I'm teaching. You may not understand that, but we certainly do. The only kid that asks me a question, how I answer, teachers are constantly thinking, how can I make it so that kid can understand? A lot of variety is used. So service, high variety, customization, job, production. Flip side, manufacturing. Less variety. There is still some, like, iPhones have a few models, but when we talk about variety, low variety, manufactured items, and again, we talk here about that flow production method, that assembly line. All right, variation in demand. Think about products, our customers wanting products, but there's a great change in demand. But again, we're not going to call it the two RVs and two Cs. So it's variation in demand, not change in demand. But it means change in demand. Think about an ice cream manufacturer. When you want ice cream, if you said winter, you're weird. You really are. Summer is when people want to purchase ice creams, and therefore ice cream manufacturers will sell a lot more ice cream in summer. So this one here takes a look at high variation in demand, and where there's steady, predictable level of demand with little variation, operations will be similar to those that produce low variety, high volume. They can use the flow production method. When there is a lot of volatility, a lot of change in the pattern of demand, operations will have to be much more flexible and therefore have a lower volume and be more using batch or job production methods. All right, almost there. The last V is visibility, which is called customer contact. A lot of these could start with C instead of V, but probably the 4 C's doesn't sound as good as the 4 V's. But visibility is customer contact. This refers to how much contact a business has with its customers. Again, service, manufacturing. Services, you see your teacher all the time. Lots of you are going, I really don't want to. The feeling's mutual. But there's high customer contact. Whereas this ring, lovely ring, my wedding ring, lovely. I didn't see it being made. There's low customer contact, low visibility. Use the term visibility. So service-based industries, high level of visibility, again, job production. Where we talk about manufacturing, we're talking about flow production, low visibility. All right, guys, thank you again for listening to this lesson, and see you next time.